He drank toxic liquid mercury to gain eternal life while dining on strings of humble yellow millet. Qin Shi Huang, the first man to rule a unified China and the founder of the Qin dynasty. He reigned as the king of the Qin state from the year 247 before the Common Era and became the first emperor of all China in the year 221. He was a man who feared death more than he feared any earthly enemy. He spent his entire life and the vast wealth of a unified continent trying to escape his own mortality. He ordered the construction of the Great Wall, which eventually stretched for over 13,000 miles across the jagged mountains and the burning sands of the Gobi Desert. This massive project required the labor of hundreds of thousands of conscripts and prisoners who died by the thousands in the harsh conditions. He demanded a tomb guarded by 8,000 life-size terracotta soldiers. Each warrior was unique with a different face and hairstyle and rank. They were armed with real bronze swords and crossbows that were treated with chromium to prevent rust. But while he sought the elixir of immortality in the stars and the depths of the eastern seas, his daily fuel was a simple food that would eventually outlast his empire and his name: longevity noodles. To recreate the ancient meal of the first emperor, we must go back to the source of Chinese civilization in the valley of the Yellow River. This region is dominated by the Loess Plateau, which is a massive deposit of wind-blown silt that is hundreds of feet thick. This soil is rich and fertile, but the climate is dry. In the year 2005, archaeologists working in the village of Lajia made a stunning discovery. They found a red ceramic bowl buried under 3 meters of flood sediment. When they lifted the bowl, they found a tangle of yellow noodles that were 4,000 years old. These noodles were preserved by an ancient earthquake and subsequent flood that sealed the bowl in an airtight layer of mud. Scientific analysis of the starch grains revealed their secret. They were not made of wheat. Modern people think of noodles as a wheat product, but wheat did not become the staple crop of China until the Han Dynasty. During the reign of the first emperor, the people relied on 2 types of ancient grains called foxtail millet and broomcorn millet. These grains are small and round and golden. They are perfectly suited for the dry and cold environment of northern China. To recreate the longevity noodles of the emperor, you must first obtain these ancient seeds. Take exactly 2,000 grams of hulled foxtail millet. You must grind this grain into a fine powder using a heavy stone quern or a large mortar and pestle. This is backbreaking work that takes many hours of physical effort. The grain is hard, and the stone is heavy. The flour produced is not like the soft white flour of today. It is gritty and golden and smells like the dry earth. Once you have ground the millet, you must sift it through a fine silk mesh exactly 7 times. Only the softest and lightest dust is worthy of being served at the royal table in the capital city of Xianyang. The chemistry of millet is a challenge for any cook. It contains no gluten. Gluten is the protein that gives wheat dough its elasticity and allows it to be stretched into long, thin strands. Without it, the millet dough will break and crumble into pieces. The ancient cooks of the palace solved this problem by using alkaline water. This water was sourced from specific mineral springs or made by soaking the ashes of broadleaf trees. The alkalinity changes the structure of the starch and makes the dough more resilient and chewy. You also need a strong binding agent. Take the whites of 24 fresh duck eggs. Mix them slowly with the millet flour and a small amount of the alkaline water. Knead the dough for at least 2 hours on a heavy wooden table. Your arms will grow tired and your muscles will ache, but you must not stop. The dough must be as smooth as jade and as flexible as leather. The emperor was a man of strict rules and absolute power. He standardized the weights and measures and the currency of the entire land. He even standardized the length of the axles on carts so they would fit in the same ruts on the imperial roads. If a cook in the palace kitchens failed to produce the perfect texture for the royal meal, they would face the executioner's blade without mercy. The dough must be rolled out on a wide board made of jujube wood. Dust a surface with fine bean flour to prevent the dough from sticking. Then use a long bronze knife to cut the dough into perfectly even ribbons. These are the longevity noodles. They must be long and unbroken because the emperor believed that a long noodle represented a long life. To break a noodle while cooking was considered a terrible omen of impending death. The cooking vessel was a large ceramic pot called a yan, which was a sophisticated steamer and boiler in one. Fill the bottom chamber with water from a sacred spring on the slopes of Mount Tai. Bring the water to a rolling boil over a fire of dried peach wood. The peach tree was a symbol of immortality and divinity in the ancient Taoist traditions. Drop the noodles into the boiling water for exactly 3 minutes. They will turn a bright yellow and have a firm and slightly chewy texture. For the broth, you must use the marrow and the fat of a black ox that was sacrificed during the autumn harvest festival. Simmer the bones with wild ginger and scallions and star anise for 48 hours over a low flame. The broth should be as clear as a mountain stream, but rich with the flavor of the earth. Add a pinch of sea salt that was harvested from the flats of the eastern coast and transported hundreds of miles by imperial caravan. The taste of the millet is nutty and sweet and far more complex than any modern wheat pasta. It is a rustic and powerful flavor that reflects the strength of the Qin people. The emperor ate these noodles with ivory chopsticks in a massive palace hall of black lacquered wood. But even as he ate for his health, he was also consuming small doses of powdered cinnabar and liquid mercury. His court alchemist told him these toxic metals would make his body as hard and eternal as stone. Instead, they slowly poisoned his organs and clouded his brilliant but paranoid mind. He became obsessed with secrecy and built over 270 palaces that were connected by a network of hidden tunnels and covered walkways. No one was allowed to know which palace he was sleeping in on any given night. He executed any servant who leaked his location. He sent an expedition of 3,000 young men and women led by the alchemist Su Fu into the Eastern Sea to find the legendary islands of the immortals. They took with them seeds and tools and grain, but they never returned. Some say they settled on the islands of Japan. The emperor died at the age of 49 in the year 210 before the Common Era while he was on a tour of his eastern provinces. His death was kept a secret by his chief unit Zhao Gao and his prime minister Li Si for several weeks. They were afraid that the news would trigger a rebellion among the people. To hide the smell of the emperor's decaying body in the summer heat, they ordered several carts of rotting fish to follow the imperial carriage. The man who sought the fragrance of eternal life left this world in a cloud of unbearable stench. But his culinary and cultural legacy survived the fall of his dynasty. The 7 warring states were Qin and Chu and Qi and Yan and Han and Zhao and Wei. For over 200 years, they fought for dominance. The state of Qin was located in the west. It was considered a land of barbarians by the eastern states, but the Qin people were tough and disciplined. They adopted the philosophy of legalism, which emphasized strict laws and agricultural production. The reformer Shang Yang established a system where farmers were rewarded for their crops and soldiers were rewarded for the number of enemy heads they brought back from battle. This turned the entire state into a massive war machine. The emperor inherited this machine when he was only 13 years old. He worked tirelessly to standardize every aspect of life. He created the first unified writing system called the Small Seal Script. This allowed his decrees to be read from the Yellow River to the Yangtze. He standardized the weight of a shai, which was approximately 60 kilograms of grain. This was the currency of the era. Soldiers and officials were paid in bags of millet. The construction of the Great Wall was a logistical nightmare. The laborers had to be fed and housed in some of the most remote places on Earth. They relied on a network of granaries that were filled with millet and wheat. The noodles they ate were a rare treat and a source of strength. The archaeological site at Loggia provides a window into this world. The red ceramic bowl was 20 centimeters wide and 10 centimeters deep. It was found in a layer of sediment that showed evidence of a massive flood. The noodles inside were about 50 centimeters long and 3 millimeters wide. They were made of a mixture of foxtail millet, which is known as setaria. Italica, and brown corn millet, which is Panicum millicium. These grains were domesticated in the highlands of China over 8,000 years ago. They are high in protein and minerals like iron and magnesium. To grind the millet today, you should use a quernstone made of granite. The top stone should weigh at least 20 kilograms. You turn it in a circular motion while feeding the grain through a hole in the center. The friction creates heat, which releases the oils and the aroma of the millet. The resulting flour must be sifted through silk because any large particles will cause the noodles to break during the boiling process. The alkaline water is the key to the entire recipe. In the ancient world, they used the ashes of the soda plant or the salt bush. This powder is rich in potassium carbonate. When added to water, it creates a slippery and basic solution. This solution breaks down the protein bonds in the millet and allows them to reform into a more flexible structure. This is the same principle used in the production of high-quality ramen today. The emperor's broth was more than just soup. It was a medicine. It contained the essence of the ox and the spirit of the mountains. The black ox was a symbol of the earth and its power. The bones were cracked open to release the marrow, which is the most nutrient-dense part of the animal. The ginger and scallions were added to balance the humors of the body. The first emperor believed in the theory of the 5 elements. Xin was the element of water. Its color was black. This is why the emperor wore black robes and his flags were black. Water overcomes fire. The noodles were yellow, which is the color of the earth element. In the cycle of the elements, earth overcomes water. By eating the yellow noodles, the emperor was symbolically consuming the power of the earth to strengthen his own water element. But no amount of symbolism could save him from the physical reality of his choices. The liquid mercury he drank was a heavy metal neurotoxin. It would have caused tremors and memory loss and fits of rage. His doctors were effectively killing him in their attempt to make him a god. The tomb he built for himself is said to contain a miniature version of his empire, with rivers and seas made of flowing mercury. These rivers were moved by a mechanical system to flow forever. Modern surveys of the burial mound have found extremely high levels of mercury in the soil, which confirms the ancient legends. The terracotta army was just the outer guard. The inner chamber of the tomb has never been opened. It remains a silent monument to a man who wanted everything. Every time someone eats a long noodle on their birthday, they are participating in a ritual that reaches back to the very first throne of a unified China. The ingredients have changed from millet to wheat, but the spirit of the dish remains the same. You can taste the history of an entire civilization in a single bowl of these noodles. The millet provides an earthy sweetness that reminds us of the fields of the north. The alkaline water gives a faint snap that speaks of ancient chemistry. The ox broth is deep and ancient and satisfying. This is not just a meal. It is a form of time travel made of grain and water and fire. You are eating the same textures that fueled the men who built the Great Wall and the army of clay. You are tasting the ambition of a man who wanted to rule the heavens and the earth. The process is slow and difficult and requires great patience, but the result is a direct connection to the dawn of the imperial age. There are no shortcuts when you are dealing with 2,000 years of history. You must grind the grain yourself. You must knead the dough until it is perfect. You must watch the fire and wait for the water to boil. Only then can you truly understand the weight of the past. The noodles sit in the bowl as a golden tangle of human history. They represent the universal desire to endure and to survive. We are all fragile creatures made of bone and breath, but our traditions and our recipes are made of something much stronger. They are passed from one generation to the next in the kitchens of the common people. The first emperor is long gone and his great palaces have turned to dust, but the noodle remains. It is a simple thing of flour and water, but it is also a victory over time itself. The sound of the boiling water and the smell of the ginger are the only things that haven't changed in 2 millennia.